Hi, my name is Marcus, and I am the host of Comic Corner. Along with my co-host Mason, we bring the kingdom of geekdom to light, or to darkness. Join us as we talk about heroes, villains, myths, and more things nerdy. Listen to us every Wednesday at 8 on Spotify. Brought to you by Gateway Pro Productions.
From 1974 to 2005, a serial killer terrorized the city of Wichita, Kansas. In total, 10 victims lost their lives. This is the tragic story of the BTK.
We've got a code 187.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Code 187. I am Joe, your host, here joined with my co-host.
Hi, I am Sarah, and we're going to talk about a case today, a serial killer case, which is different. So, yeah.
Yes, and a very popular one too.
Mhm.
Yes, and see, I was with this particular case, the name rings a bell. So I have probably heard this story before, but I'm drawing a blank right now. I can't I hear the name and I'm like I can't think of anything. I know he's a serial killer, but I can't think of anything. So, or it might be I'm mixing them up with another serial killer, and
They're all kind of the same anyway.
yeah, I know. They are. So yeah, that's my problem. I've listened to so many that they're just meshing together. So, yeah, I'm gonna shut up and I'm gonna start listening so that my memory can catch up.
Okay, well, before I wanted to start this, I wanted to talk about my connection
Okay.
to BTK because I grew up around Wichita.
Okay.
And so I was in Wichita all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Like on those TV shows, true crime ones, they're like, it was just a normal town until it wasn't, like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's definitely Wichita, like totally normal Kansas town. And then like serial killer, dun dun
Yeah.
dun, kind of thing.
Okay. Okay.
Um, and so this was a big span too. This was 1974 to 2005.
Gotcha.
And he wasn't active during all those years, we'll find,
Okay.
but it was still a fear of
Okay.
everybody's that he was going to come back. And he had threatened children
Okay.
and was like, kind of, I mean, he was a sexual predator against children,
Mm-hmm.
but he did go after little girls. And so my parents taking me to Wichita, I'm sure they were like, stay close to me, don't go anywhere,
Yes.
because you
Mm-hmm.
never knew who it was.
Yeah.
It could have been your neighbor, and it's just terrifying.
Now, we're going to talk about who. Do they know who he is?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Because I was like, because he was like, nobody knows who he is, and I was like, is this still like an ongoing case? Uh, all right. All
No,
right.
they found him in 2005,
Okay.
and he's actually housed in the prison in the town I grew up in, which
Okay.
is El Dorado, Kansas.
Gotcha.
So I have a lot of ties to this case. I knew the names of the victims early on. I
Okay.
watched his court cases, and it's weird to have like a case that you know so well
Yes.
and you research it and it's like, oh, I didn't know that, or how can I tell it differently?
Yes. I've had just this week. I've had a couple of people talk about certain cases and things, and it really blows my mind because I'm connected to them, and it's like I know so much about this stuff, so I can't even imagine how you feel. Like really into it. So
Yeah, and like so I remember when he was caught, we like drove by and was
Uh-huh.
like looking at all like because all the news stations were outside where he
Yeah.
was.
Uh-huh.
And me and my dad are like, "Whoa, look at that. That's so cool." And like we're such true crime weirdos, but like it was just a big, huge news story.
Yes.
And it really impacted a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Alrighty. Well, let's get right into it. Here we go.
Okay. All right. So on January 15th, 1974, Charlie Otero came home from a normal day at school. Charlie Otero was a sophomore in high school at the time. I can't talk. Um, however, after stepping inside the house, something didn't feel right to him. The dog that the kids were told could not be outside
Mm-hmm.
because it was cold was in the backyard.
Okay.
And so he was like, that's weird. And he probably thought, I'm going to get on to my brothers for doing that.
Yeah.
And his mother also kept a super clean home.
Mm-hmm.
And when he walked in, it was a mess.
Okay.
So he's standing there in the kitchen and he's thinking, like, what is going on? And he hears his younger sibling call to him, Charlie, come quick. Mom and dad are playing a cruel joke on us.
Mm-hmm.
So he walked into his parents' bedroom, and that's when he found his parents' bodies. In Charlie's own words, he described the gruesome crime scene. He described it as his father was tied up,
Okay.
his eyes were bulging, his tongue was almost completely bit off.
Mm-hmm.
His mother was on the bed. She didn't even look like his mother anymore. And he said, I looked at my dad and I could smell death and fear in the room.
Mm-hmm.
So Charlie Otero is really like, he went through it. He was the oldest. And to find this scene,
Yes.
I mean, it was really hard on him.
Yes, that's crazy. I say that in like every episode.
You do. It's okay though. So he ordered his younger siblings to go to the neighbors and call for help. The police took the children to the station to sort everything out.
Mm-hmm.
And Charlie kept begging the police, like, don't let my two younger siblings go home. Because he didn't know where they were. He thought they were at school.
Okay.
And he was worried they were going to come home and this person or people were going to find them.
Yes.
So he just keeps saying it to this cop. And the cop finally set him down and said, you don't have to worry about that. They were also killed.
Oh. Good.
Yeah. So we have two parents and two children right off the bat. And I'm going to back up and I'm going to tell the whole story.
Okay.
But this moment was like eye-opening for me.
Okay.
Because I was like, as Charlie, the oldest of the siblings, you do like feel like you have to protect your whole family.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure he just didn't know what to do now.
Yes. It's like, I mean,
so, yeah.
The purpose is taken as an older adult. Your parents are gone. You're trying to protect your siblings. And now it's like, I mean, I would hate to be in his shoes figuring out his whole family is gone, you know?
Yeah. And I mean, I was scared knowing BTK was on the loose. I can't imagine how he felt until 2005.
Yeah.
Like, they might come back for me.
Mm-hmm. Oh, this is some real, like, Halloween S-ness we've got going on here.
Very true. So I told you kind of about them finding the bodies. So I'm going to rewind to the morning, that morning of January 15th, 1974. So it was a normal day for the Oteros. They got up at 8 a.m. And she was kind of getting the kids ready to go. Some of the kids went off to school. And just after 8 a.m., a man snuck around the Otero house into the backyard. He was cutting the phone line and he paused for a second and he thought, this is the time where it's like, if I'm going to go back, I go back now.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And he proceeded. So he cut the phone line, and then he kind of wondered, can I pull this off?
Mm-hmm.
And then he came into the back door. So this man has been stalking the family for a while.
Okay.
He was mad because he got laid off from his job, and he saw Julie Otero, who was 34, and her 11-year-old daughter, Josie.
Okay.
And he thought, I want those women,
Mm-hmm.
quote unquote women. So this day he was completely prepared to attack the young girl and the mother. He brought bindings and weapons with him. He had not planned for the father, Joseph Otero, to be home, who was 38, and also their 9-year-old son, Joey.
Gotcha.
And Joseph Otero was home because he had gotten in a car wreck.
Gotcha.
And so he was just home from work that day. The two kids hadn't gone to school. And I mean, this guy's coming in at 8 a.m. Like,
yes.
I just think about like the balls to like do this broad daylight.
Was he not? Did he not? Because okay. So he's been stalking them, so that means he knows their usual routine. Did he not notice? Maybe he was filled with adrenaline, because and maybe that's why he didn't notice everything. But I don't know, man. I still would look around like, oh, the car's in the garage, or the morning's not going the way as it usually goes, kind of a deal. I don't know.
Yeah. So I will tell you, BTK is the dumbest person on the face of the planet in general. He makes so many mistakes. He does stupid stuff, and I don't know how he went that long without getting caught. Because he's just an idiot. And he has this in his mind that he's this like badass, like he's this like, I'm a serial killer.
Yeah.
But he's not. He's dumb.
Listen, so what you're basically telling me is his whole serial killing career is most of it's luck. And yeah, that's crazy. Because I mean, you guys heard us talk about this on the show, that if you're gonna do this, you need to do it the right way and watch your mistakes and everything. And whatever we said in the past, just throw it out the way. Because PD, what's his name one more time?
BTK.
So BTK, he can, he's just following his footsteps, because he didn't have a plan or anything, or just mess up with it.
Yeah, he went completely on instinct. He did really, really dumb stuff. He almost wanted to get caught.
Yeah.
I think part of him was like, I don't want to do this, so I'm just going to mess it up. And then the cops, too, were in this weird phase from like the 70s, 80s, where you're right smack dab in the middle of serial killers.
Yes.
So like you had some before, and then you had some after, but we weren't in the like knowledge that we have now.
Yes.
To be able to really pinpoint things.
Yes. So basically what you're saying is that since we had a little bit of serial killings before, and they came after, so the cops really didn't automatically think that it was serial killers.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, and they didn't know the patterns of it, and so they didn't connect things like we do now.
Yes.
And so he's like taking responsibility for them too. He's like, hey, wait, I did these and you're not giving me my credit. He's just dumb. We get into it and he's just an idiot. So yeah.
I'm loving this one already.
Yeah. It's not funny what he did, but man, he's funny because he was an idiot.
Yeah, just the way he did. I mean, All right, I'm ready to hear more about this guy.
Okay, so of course he was like expecting two defenseless females and that this was going to be easy.
Uh-huh.
Now this man now has to figure out how to kill four victims on his first kill.
Okay.
And so he came into the house through the back door and told the family he was a wanted man.
Uh-huh.
You see, he uses this excuse a lot where it's, oh, I'm escaping from prison and I just need a car and money and I'm not going to hurt you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that it kind of like he says that it kind of gives them trust
Gotcha.
in him. But I don't really think that's true.
I mean,
Any way you have it, it's scary.
Yeah, if you use that line, I mean, they're still not going to trust you. You're a prisoner.
Right, exactly. So of course he tells them, I'm not going to hurt you.
Uh-huh.
The man ordered the family to lie on the living room floor at gunpoint as he went through the things in the living room. So he's kind of ransacking things to go along with his story that he just wants money.
Mm-hmm.
Then he took the family into the bedroom and tied them with the rope that he brought.
Mm-hmm.
Julie and Josie were on the bed, and Joseph and Joey were on the floor.
Gotcha.
While he was telling them what to do and everything, he tried to make it sound like he cared for these people.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like he loosened the bonds when they said they were too tight.
Yeah.
And the dad had broken ribs.
Yeah.
And so BTK was like, oh, I'm, gonna put this pillow under you to help you. And he kind of, when he's telling it later, he kind of tries to make it sound like, oh, look at this good deed I did. Like I'm helping this family out. And it's like, no.
Yeah. Like, so what I don't understand about this is like, this is a tactic you would probably use when you're gonna, when you're maybe gonna let your victims go. And so they're gonna be like,
right.
Oh, we were afraid for our lives, but he was still hospitable, kind of a thing. I don't understand if your intent was to kill them. Why are you being buddy-buddy? So you can sound nice to the police when you're presenting your case. I killed them, but at the same time, I was nice to him.
He's like this conundrum where you're like, you see this glimmer of like him being like, well, I'm just a normal guy. Like, and then you have this evil person.
Yeah.
And he really plays that part a lot.
Yes. And that is something, that is something that does happen with a lot of serial killers. They actually, no, that's not right. Because, they do how they flip usually, because they'll usually bring you in with their nice personality. And then once the victim is like the family, they're all tied up and everything, that's where it usually flips. So this is really weird for him in this situation, and I don't get it.
Yeah, I never understood what was going on in this man's mind, because he has two sides, and he got away with it because no one believed that this guy could have done these things. And if he would have just been a little smarter and played the part, he probably would have gotten away with it for a lot longer.
Yes.
Maybe forever.
Yeah.
But he just, I don't even know. Okay, so he knew right off the bat that he was going to kill them because they'd seen his face. There was no way he was getting away with it.
Yeah.
And I think the family, at least the parents, kind of knew that too.
Yes.
Like, I don't know if he's going to let us go.
Yes.
So while Joseph's hands and feet were bound, the man placed a plastic bag over Joseph's head and tightened the cords. So he's trying to suffocate the dad. Then he strangled Julie, which is the mom.
Okay.
He stated that they were all freaking out, which, they're fighting back. But but that's what he says. And so he tried to move super quickly
Okay.
from person to person. Um, but because this was his first kill and he had no idea how much force or how long it takes to strangle someone,
Mm-hmm.
they were coming back.
Gotcha.
So he, so I mean, strangulation can happen fast.
Yes, it can.
It can happen without you really meaning to.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, like you have to strangle someone with a lot of force to fully kill them.
Yes, you just gotta do it right. You just gotta make sure your ropes are. I mean, if I was in that position, I'm just putting myself in his position. Wouldn't you just try to do it as tight as possible? I mean, why would you go loose at all? You know, wouldn't you just do full force? I mean, and if he sees that they're coming back, wouldn't you? I don't know. You know.
Yeah, it's just dumb. So basically what these people had going on was they were all passing out
Mm-hmm.
and waking back up
Yeah.
and passing out and waking back up.
Mm-hmm.
And he's going, "Why aren't you dying?" They're going, fighting and trying to get out. And so he's fumbling the whole thing.
Uh-huh.
And I don't know if he had planned to have the women not be fully out
Uh-huh.
so he could rape them or do whatever he was going to do. But it just became this like, I almost like kind of think it's a like one of those like comedy movie scenes where it's like something's happening over here, something's happening over here.
Yes.
And you're just going from one to one. And I know that's not comedic at all,
Yes.
but that's what I picture in my head is just him bumbling the whole thing and basically torturing
Yeah, and
these victims.
it's I know he wasn't ready to do 4 victims, and he hadn't intended on doing 4 victims. But wouldn't you run out the house immediately after you saw that? Because I've heard stories where there's been serial killers who had been killing for years, and they just happened to stumble upon a victim, and they were surprised by another person, and then that they couldn't do it. You know, now you've got this guy, his first murder, and he's handling 4 people. God, I don't know. I would have just left. Time to go back and regroup and figure stuff out.
Right. And I mean, I think his ego got in the way a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
He thought, oh, I can handle this, you know, because he's in between this, knowing it's his first kill, knowing he's not experienced,
Yep.
and also being like, but I'm a serial killer.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of where the conundrum comes from is like him being overly confident, but not knowing what to do. And it's so sad for these victims because I don't want to imagine what they're going through.
Mm-hmm.
And it just keeps going because he can't finish it.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of, I mean, he was torturing them without even really kind of even knowing it, you know, like everybody would hate to be in that position of the victims, but God, just to be in there, I can't imagine just going in and out, looking at this guy, and it's like, why is he toying with me? Like, I bet you in their heads they thought like he's doing this on purpose, you know, but to him he didn't know what the hell he was doing. Like, have you got frustrated at a serial killer?
Oh, so much.
This was really...
He makes me the most frustrated I've ever been in my life.
Yeah.
Because it's just pointless and it's broad daylight. So like what's his game here? Like what does he think's gonna happen?
Yep.
I mean, he's probably gonna get caught.
Yep. But well, I mean, we know the story.
Right. But I mean, in that moment, I mean, he's got to be thinking, is someone going to come home? I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, it needs to be quick. Did he not look up the Serial Killer 101 book at the library and try to...
And this is what frustrates me so bad, is he thought he was the greatest killer alive.
Yeah.
when he's telling these stories later, he's like telling people, he's like, well, I know this from all my research of serial killers. But it's like, you're so dumb. You
Mm-hmm.
don't know how to do it.
Yep. Yep. So are all his killings gonna be like this, where they kind of fumble, or is he gonna just get, as he gets more experienced, is he just gonna get right to the point?
He fumbles a lot.
Oh God dang it!
He does. I mean, I think he gets a little bit better,
Yes.
but he's dumb. He doesn't learn from his mistakes. He's
Mm-hmm.
just dumb.
Huh. Wow. Listen, how about we do this? Let's take a break, and
Okay.
we'll come back with more of his dumbness. We'll be right back, guys, right after this.
In a world with pain and destruction, we need a hero. Who will be that hero? Gateway Pro presents an old podcast, The Joe Show. Whoa, wrong ad. Let's try that again. Hey guys, my name is Joe and I'm the host of the Joe Show podcast. On my show, we talk about anything and everything except politics. You will never know what we'll be talking about on our show, so you should definitely tune in. Join my boy Marcus and my brother Mason as we talk about food, superheroes, and those are just some of our simple topics. Sometimes we can get a little complex and talk about the difference between wisdom and knowledge. You never know what we're going to be talking about on the Joe Show. Even though we have a plethora of topics to talk about, our goal is to entertain you, the listener. So check us out on social media at Gateway Pro on Facebook, The Joe Show on Reddit, The Joe Show 2020 on TikTok, and The Joe Show _20 on Instagram. You can also find us Spotify, Google Play, Apple Podcasts, or anywhere you listen to podcasts. Join us every Monday at 8 o'clock.
And we're back with more of this episode with BTK. Did I get that right?
Hmm?
All right. So we're going to hear more about him fumbling with all his murders and everything. So now I said we were going to hear more stories about him, but we didn't finish the first one.
Right.
So let's go back and finish the first one before we move on to more of his murders.
Yeah. So, like I said, he's strangling them. They're passing out and they're coming back.
Mm-hmm.
And so he gets this ingenious idea to put like bags over their heads.
Mm-hmm.
And then when they come back, they're just biting through the bags and breathing. And then he's like putting another bag or like something else. And it's horrific. But this happens with the whole family, except for Josephine.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Oh, no. I'm just over here reacting because I'm just picturing this in my head. Like, I know we said it's not comical, but as you're reading all this, that's how it's looking to me. It's just like, it's stupid. It's something that comes out of, it sounds like it comes out of a film or something like that. So it didn't happen with Josephine.
Yes. So everybody else in the house, he did this with. He kept Josephine kind of alive.
Okay.
I mean, he did enjoy strangling her,
Okay.
but he kept her kind of alive. And remember, she's an 11-year-old girl.
Mm-hmm.
So he decided he was going to take her to the basement. He took off her clothes,
Okay.
and then he hung her from a pipe.
Gotcha.
And he purposely did it to where she's inches from the floor.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
As kind of a torture thing.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And then he masturbated.
Mm-hmm.
And this is just one of the most horrible parts of this story.
Mm-hmm.
Because you have him purposely doing all this stuff.
Yes.
To a little girl.
Mm-hmm.
But now he's also leaving DNA at the scene.
Yes.
And I know that we didn't know a lot about DNA at the scene
Yes.
stuff,
Hmm.
but like he's leaving semen, which is gonna tie right back to him
Yes. Yes.
all over the scene.
Yep. And that's what I was thinking. I was just like, hold on now. That's a big no no. Um, but then okay, so he is downstairs with Josephine. Well, what's
Mhm.
happening with the family upstairs? Are they dead yet?
Yes.
Okay.
So after he made sure that they were all dead, which I don't know how long that took, I don't know what that took, but after they were all gone, that's when he took Josephine downstairs.
Gotcha. Okay. So, man, that's crazy. Now, there was a at the beginning of the story. There was like who told the oldest to that somebody's playing a trick on them.
Other
Other
siblings.
siblings. Okay.
So they had, I think, 4 kids or 5 kids.
Okay.
And 2 were killed
Okay.
in this. And then I think 2 or 3 came home. And Charlie, which was the oldest,
Yes.
was the one that was like, make sure my siblings get home okay.
Okay.
But they were already dead.
Yes. Hmm.
So I mean, he did leave a few, but that's because they were already gone at school.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Um, so here's where he really just this icing on the cake.
Yeah.
So after all of that, he said in his own words that he cleaned up the house a little bit. He took the dad's watch
Mm-hmm.
and a radio, just cause. He got the keys to their car, walked out the front door, got in their car, and drove away. So this is all in broad daylight, probably
Mm-hmm.
like midday.
Yep.
So then he parked their car at a grocery store down the street.
Okay. Okay.
He walked back to his car.
Uh-huh.
And then he was like, on his way back, he was like, oh man, I forgot my clippers when I clipped the phone line. So he went back to their car, took their car back to the home, got his pliers or whatever they were, went back to the grocery store. Hold on. Left the car, walked back to his car, got in his own car, and left the scene.
There could have been so many witnesses. Listen, listen. Listen. Okay, when you listen to true crimes, you don't. You kind of get into the mindset of the serial killers, and you start to think like them, right? This dude
Mm-hmm.
has just completely just killed everything. Like when you were saying that he should have gotten caught earlier, I was like, it can't be that bad, you know. But he is everything that all these serial killers try to prevent. He is just like, I don't care, you know. Go back to the house twice because you've got some clippers. Like, just so many witnesses. Like, nosy neighbors, you know, could have saw him go there the first time. And then, you know, then he's leaving right out the front door and hopping into the car, you know. You got Bill and Martha. Martha, somebody's hopping into the Johnson's car, you know.
Right.
Ah, my gosh. This is... Dude, I don't know, man.
He is just, I mean, I said this earlier in this, but just the balls on him
Yes.
to just be so confident, to just do whatever the hell he wants to do
Yes.
and get away with it. And I mean, I do not blame the police because at this time it was like he bumbled and messed up that scene so bad that the investigators thought, oh, we have someone who came into this family's home and tortured them.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So they're going off of, okay, we have someone who literally like choked people out until they came back up.
Mm-hmm.
Like they hated these people.
Yes.
So they're looking at enemies, not this random dude.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So the cops are confused
They think
just as much as we are.
they think he's smarter than he is. Oh, that hurts even more. Oh,
Yeah.
gosh, man. Okay.
And then you have this DNA at the scene,
Mm-hmm.
but in the 70s you have to have something to compare it to.
Yes.
So like if a criminal came in, yeah, we can compare that, but like this was his first kill. This
Yeah.
was
Mm-hmm.
all he did.
Mm-hmm.
So they had no idea what to do with the semen.
Yeah. And then wasn't it like in the 80s where they actually came up with the technology for that? Because I know they had like fingerprints and all that, but
Mhm.
I can't remember the date. But I didn't know if it was the 70s or 80s when they actually came out with like blood and DNA testing and stuff like that.
I think it was close to this time. I
Yeah.
mean, I think they had stuff to compare it to.
Yeah.
What we have now that's came out in the
Mm-hmm.
last couple of years is DNA tracing.
Okay.
So they can take something like semen
Mm-hmm.
and make a composite sketch of someone just based on your DNA strands.
Gotcha.
And then they can compare that to their suspects, basically.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
But in the 70s, I mean, you had to have something to go against it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, they have this random DNA, they have this botched scene. Um, they have this guy who killed a little girl,
Mm-hmm.
so it's pissing the cops off.
Yes.
Um, and this little boy, but things he did to Josie were just horrible.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So they're like, what the heck do we do now?
Mm-hmm.
So I wrote in my notes, I'm going to stop here to say that this man is a complete dumbass, which I've already said before. But like, I cannot say enough how much he wasn't prepared.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And the things he did, I mean, it's common sense stuff.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Um, and you said earlier that he hadn't learned from any of his previous killings. So, I mean, because I would look at this and be like, okay, those guys took too long to die with me strangling them. Bags need to be tighter. Um, yeah, man, I don't know, man. It's really bringing out like it's really bringing up not like the serial killer true crime minded me because it's like, come on, dude, like you should know all this. I mean, especially if he kind of had to have somebody to idolize because I don't think he would just wake up one day and just like, this is what I'm gonna do today.
Right. And so you led me right into that because he said he idolized the serial killers at the time.
Okay.
Um, the serial killers that matched up kind of before or during his reign was Edmund Kemper
Okay.
and the Zodiac Killer.
Yep.
Those were kind of before his time.
Mm-hmm.
After his time was Ted Bundy, things like that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I think probably the guy in New York that Son of Sam.
Son of Sam. I've never
But
heard of that one.
Son of Sam he was a guy in New York that shot people.
Okay.
But if you go back to like his whole thing is strangulation.
Okay.
BTKs.
Okay.
And I don't think a lot of people were doing that really at the time. And so when he went to the scene, he only had rope, and then the pliers to cut the thing. Mm-hmm. So like when those people weren't dying, he had no backup plan.
Yeah.
To shoot them or do anything like that.
Mm-hmm. And is he even a big guy?
I mean, the best way I describe him is just like a Midwestern dad. Like he's not huge. Yeah. He's not Edmund Kemper's size for sure.
Because I would think, I mean, if you're going to use, because they will talk about in serial killings where the size of the person, whether they're small or big, and then You know, like if they're a smaller guy, they're going to use guns. You know, they're going to use
Hmm.
knives. And then if you're a bigger person, that's where you hear a lot more of, oh, he strangled them with their bare hands and stuff like that. So, yeah, I was just wondering, how big is this guy to be strangling people? I don't know.
I think he's a pretty normal dude.
Uh huh.
Um, but so his whole thing, and I'm going to talk a little bit about him as a person.
Okay.
Um, he said in his book that he was exposed to like hardcore bondage BDSM porn at a
Okay.
young age. And when that happens, a lot of times you get violence and sex fused.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And so that's kind of what sparked the strangulation and
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that. Is he wants to do that. He wants to have the bondage so much that it kills someone.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And what most people, we're not psychologists or anything on here, but for what most people usually don't know is that, for what I heard, is that the testosterone levels in a male, it's both used for like exercise and it's also used for sexual activity. So that
Mhm.
was one of those things too where people can get that confused a lot, you know, because your levels are high up. And so yeah, it makes completely sense that he would even get those two just messed up like that. So
Right. And so there's two different ones. The sadistic, I don't know anything about this stuff, but that person, the S in BDSM,
mhm.
is where they want to hurt their partner.
Okay,
The masochist person feels pleasure by getting hurt.
okay,
Um, I think he was probably both,
okay,
but he's really seeing this as wanting to perform it on someone. He's wanting
gotcha.
to do this to someone else.
Okay,
But so BDSM community is consenting adults.
yes,
This is not what BTK is.
yes,
Like he's beyond that.
yes, mhm.
He wants to do it to children and parties who don't consent.
Yes, mm-hmm.
And I think where BTK gets like really weird
Uh-huh.
is that he does things to himself.
Gotcha.
So
I was
he
I was
go
getting ready to
ahead.
I was getting ready to ask you because you said the one that was the M. I was like, what are you talking about? There's in the previous story there was nothing about that. So you're getting into that. Okay, I'm
Yes.
listening.
So he liked hanging himself. He liked dressing as women and then hanging himself. He took pictures of all of this.
Okay.
And so you look up BTK and it's like weird pictures.
Uh-huh.
Like he would dig a grave
Uh-huh.
and then put like a mask on and be bondage and lay in the grave and take pictures of himself.
Good.
And that's the stuff that would get him off.
Like,
I don't know.
listen, we've heard serial killers. I mean, I've heard about, them, dressing in women's clothing and taking them pictures, but not to this extent, like it's real weird. It's really weird. And
Yeah.
we talk about how messed up the minds are of these guys. This dude was just, what, he was fucked up.
Yeah. And it's interesting. Like, I was talking about the two different sides of
Mhm.
BTK a lot, but there's this, like, really Midwestern dad,
Okay.
like, churchgoer, family man dude,
Mhm.
a normal dude. And then you have this other side that was just weird and
Mhm.
crazy and just like horrific.
Yeah.
And I don't know how they fused into one person. It baffles me.
Jeez.
So this dude talks a lot too.
Okay.
So in his book, he talks about what he thinks happened.
Okay.
And he said that as a child, he would get aroused when he was being spanked. He said he would like to watch as chickens got slaughtered.
Uh-huh.
Um, he was sexually excited when he read about murders,
Mm-hmm.
um, and those types of things.
Yeah.
He would also fantasize about tying women to tracks,
Mm-hmm.
like train tracks.
Yeah.
Um, he liked to hang cats and watch them struggle until they died, which is one of the big things with serial killers is killing animals.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Um, and then he said there was one time that stuck out to him in his mind where his mother got her ring stuck in the couch when she was cleaning
Okay.
and yelled for him and said to run for help because she
Okay.
couldn't get out.
Uh-huh.
And he remembered being aroused by the fact that this helpless woman needed his help.
Yeah. Boy, it's your mama. Calm down.
Yeah. He always stuck to the story that he was never abused or sexually abused.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but somehow in his mind, he got those two things together, violence and sex.
Mm-hmm.
And this was the only thing he could do to pleasure himself
Gotcha.
and get rewarded for everything in life was to do this to defenseless people.
Yeah. So, and that's one of those things too. It kind of makes sense because with um, what somebody said, a stiff dick has no conscience is the great advice that I got. So it's one of those things. If he's trying to get off,
Mhm.
maybe he's not thinking stuff through all the way, because it's just him in that moment, and that's the only thing that's on his mind, because like you said earlier in the beginning, it was he saw the mother and Josephine, and then he was going to go in and do what he was going to do.
Mhm.
So yeah, I mean, that's crazy.
So the psychology behind serial killers for me talking about them is always hard because they always talk about the serial killer
Yes.
and not the victims.
Yes.
But for him, like he is such a weird guy.
Yes.
Like how can we prevent this from happening
Mm-hmm.
in the future? How do we prevent other children from doing this? And it's hard because he faked it. He
Mm-hmm.
faked being normal so well
Yes. Mm-hmm.
that it was hard to see that he was crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I, I, I don't even know. I don't even know. That's why we talked about my podcast. We have to talk about sex and stuff and be more open about it. Because if he was more open about this, they could have said, "Oh, dude, you're a little weird. Let's get you some help." So.
Mm-hmm. There used to be a thing in psychology where it was like the serial killer triad.
Mm.
And it was a triangle of three things that all serial killers possessed when they were young.
Yes.
And one of them was harming animals,
Yep.
bedwetting,
Yes, I heard that one before.
and I think setting fires.
Okay.
We've come further now to know that like you don't have to hit all of those, or you can and not become a serial killer.
Yes.
But you kind of put him in the triangle, and you're like, he was killing small animals
Mm-hmm.
because he liked it and was
Yes.
getting off on it. And
Mhm.
so he's going to grow up to do that to other defenseless people.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, he fits it. He fits the serial killer vibe.
Yes.
He's learned also how to be a normal guy too.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And that's scary.
Yes. It's just a wolf hiding in sheep's clothing.
Right.
Yes. So.
And they talked about how his family, like, how did his family not know?
Mm-hmm.
And I really believe that they didn't.
Yes.
He hid a lot of things from his wife
Mm-hmm.
and his children, and they just thought he was normal.
Well, I mean, and it's one of the big things too with serial killers is that something I've heard is they know how to compartmentalize, right? Where
Hmm.
it'll be one of those things. Family life is family life. They are the average Joe, living their life. Everybody thinks they're great, but then when it's time, when they get that urge to kill, they become a completely different person. I can't tell you how many times I've listened to podcasts or read stories about serial killers on how they will say, like, the victims will say they were this just nice guy, and then all of a sudden their face changed to this completely different person, and like it's crazy. Um, and I bet you that was the same with him. It was just in the right situations, he knew when to be the upright citizen, and then in the dark, he became fulfilled all his fantasies. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
His reign of terror was just so big because you have the victims' families, all of that, and then you have his family,
hmm
who, when all this came out, I mean, victimized as well because they're like, my whole childhood
yeah,
was a lie,
yeah.
or the husband I knew I had
hmm
is not the person that I thought.
Yes, I just had a story like that. There was a guy I met on route, and he just found out that his grandfather was a rapist because they just found out that his grandfather raped a 17-year-old disabled African American kid. And they didn't know anything about this. It happened about 5 years ago, and it's finally caught up to him. And he was telling me, he's like, man, for the past 3 months, I've been working with this guy, and there's nothing has been, I could tell you nothing. He was a nice guy, nice old guy, and hearing all this, it's just blowing his mind. Um, and it's crazy. It's crazy how our brains can do that. They're just so powerful. Our brains, it's ridiculous.
Yeah. And this is why this stuff is so interesting, too.
hmm Yeah, I mean, it allows us to try to figure out what the heck's going on with him. Why does he think like this? Why does his brain work this way? Um, Man, I don't know. And the fact that you know he's got this brain and he's just a bumbling idiot. You know, like God, I don't know, man. It's okay.
So we just got over his first kill,
Yeah.
So he's got so much more too that we haven't dove into where he's a bumbling idiot.
So we you have more of those right now.
Yeah,
Uh,
I have like his whole thing, all of them.
then this is what we're going to do. We are going to leave you guys on a cliffhanger. So come back next week, and Sarah and I are going to have more stories for you guys about BTK.
And
And
they're good.
yeah, they're really good, as you can tell from this one. And then, we'll get to more discussions about his mind and everything. So, if you guys like us, go check us out on Facebook at Code 187. Give us a like. I just did this new cool thing where if you don't want to find us on Spotify, you can check us out on Facebook, and it will be the same as listening to it on Spotify. So you guys can do that. We're also on Instagram. If you're watching the video, all our stuff, is it going to be right down here, Sarah? All our
Yep,
links
in
and
the
stuff?
description box below.
Yeah, so in the description box, if you're watching video, but you're doing podcasts, I mean, if you're listening to it, I'm just going to tell you, I did Instagram. Is it at Code 187?
Yeah, and I think there's YT after it, which is YouTube.
Okay, gotcha.
Some of our socials have YT after it.
Okay.
So I did put all of our socials below on the Spotify link too, so you can just click them.
Gotcha. So, yeah, if you guys want to know more about Code 187, join our group. Click on the descriptions on Spotify and on YouTube. As for right now, we're going to be headed out of here and come back next week with more BTK. I'm Joe.
And I'm Sarah.
Thank you guys for listening to Code 187.
Hi guys, I I just wanted to say I hope you enjoyed this video. If you like any of the content for Code 187, please click that subscribe button, that like button, that share button. Help us out, help us grow. You can find us on your favorite podcast platforms. Yeah, check us out on there. Give us some ratings. Tell us what you think. We're also across every social media on Code 187.
Okay,
so we're on
this is fine.
TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. I think that's it. And of course YouTube. So please, please, please subscribe if you like our content and spread the word. We'll see you guys next time. Bye.